Now let's grab some of our, I guess we could go for our darkest dark at this point. This is a really powerful dark, so let's use it sparingly. It looks like the paint on my canvas is still wet, so it's mixing a little bit with it. When the canvas is wet, something you can do to keep moving forward is load up your brush. If you can, is it going to focus on that now? You can load up your brush with more paint. It's funny, it's like not focusing, whatever. Load up with more paint and use a more gentle hand, and the paints won't mix together as much. So it's almost like you're just letting that thicker paint you have on your brush just sort of fall onto the canvas. Because if you really push it, you're going to mix what's wet underneath. Alternately, maybe you can't do this all in one sitting, and that's fine. So you can let the painting dry a little bit. Now you can turn your brush any way you want to make any shapes you want. There's no, just because it's a flat brush doesn't mean you can only use it one way. If you drag your brush again, it's going to pick up that paint, so I'm kind of dabbing. Put it down and then move, and put it down and move. Okay. Now, let's take our this is our number 5. I didn't clean my brush in between these because I don't mind if my number 5 gets a little bit darker this time. I'm going to look at some of these core shadows. And this one really draws my attention. I want to deal with this one. I always love those areas of real high contrast. Let's take a look at... This is something else. A lot of painters, especially if you're working on a table or on an easel, I typically work on the wall when I'm painting for myself. This is on a table, obviously. A lot of painters will use something to prop their hand on because you can't rest your hand on the wet paint. So this is half of an arrow stock that belonged to my great aunt. She was Native American. She passed away a few years ago, very old age. And so this is just a arrow stock that her husband had made for her. So she always used it as a tool to rest her hand on. And you can't quite see the angle, but this way I'm able to reach in and my hand is not touching the paint. I can control my brush a little better, especially for small stuff. You may notice if you're just sort of floating, you're really depending on your shoulder to move. This will help. You don't need a stick. You could also use your own hand, your own arm. I often just use my hand. I'll place it like with my fingers on the table and rest my other hand on it like that. It's a lot faster. Okay, what was I doing? I got my medium gray, almost dark gray. Get that value in there. I'm gonna let my shapes be kind of, I want to call them more linear. I want to say that they're a little bit more linear, not too choppy, not super organic. Sort of like big filled in shapes. I think that's good for us at this stage because I just really don't want you to get too caught up in details that are not necessary. So I can leave that as a triangle shape. I'm going to paint this whole section to be darker. That looks nice. Let's see. Add a medium value in there. I actually kind of want to go add this medium on the whole lower surface of this shape. That might cause me some problems with the fabric, though. I think the fabric's a little darker in this area. I don't need to give my viewer every little detail. Sometimes our eyes are going to be able to fill in the extras. Let's clean off our brush. Now, let's deal with the highlights on these objects. Go to our lightest light, number 1 on our scale. I'm going to let my paint be kind of thick because I want it to really cover what's there. I'm also going to pay attention to the shapes involved. This is that opportunity to correct some of our earlier funky shapes. And I keep looking at the image. Every time you see me pause, I'm looking up at the image and then trying to get the right angle. Same principles you use when you're drawing. Okay. Let's apply that here. And a little bit of it on this sliced cylinder. Just a little like that. Kind of a crescent moon shape almost. gonna grab a little bit of this number 2, let what was on my brush mix with it, because I just want to soften that transition a tiny bit here. See how there's 3 values across that now? Let's look at this shape again. Are there some lighter areas we need to address? I think so. Let's go here. Like that. We're going to do the same thing on the top here. And I see in my image there's a little reflected light here. Let's see what happens when we add that. Look at how those kind of blend together. I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to use, I'm still using my number 2 value. I'm just going through and lightening some spots that really need it. You can mix 1 and 2 together to get a value that's in between if you feel like. You don't have to, you can stick just with these 6. You could definitely still make this painting with just the 6 values. Okay, clean my brush. And just fix a couple of little shapes. This, I think, needs to be fixed. So let's go with our, I'm going to try my 3, my number 3 value, and see how that fits in there. I didn't like quite how light that got, so I'll cover it. Yeah, let's do that a little bit more. 3, kind of clean up some of these lines. Now I'm seeing that my shape here, it's a little like it got extended on this side. It needs to be cut in a little bit more to feel really even. I'm gonna have to wait until it dries, but once it's dry, I can use this value and just simply paint into that. I'll have to adjust this down here, but it'll be easy to correct that. Let's see, let's deal with the fabric a little bit more. Now, since we're moving into a smaller area, this is the first time I'm going to use a smaller brush. This is my number 6 flat brush. So get it wet, scrape off that water. And let's look at this fabric a little bit more. I see there's a lot going on in the fabric, so I really want to try to abbreviate things. I don't want to get too locked down. I feel like I need a value that's in between my 5 and 6. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of that with my brush. Feel free to do that with me. I want to be able to describe these areas that turn into dark shadows, but aren't quite black. That's light. clean my brush. Go with my lighter value here. Let's get our medium in there. Oh, that all got too light. I didn't clean my brush and that got too light, so easy thing you can do is ball up a little paper towel and just wipe that spot. You don't want to wipe anywhere else because it will sort of mess everything else up. Let's go back to this darker value. It's kind of medium dark. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. There, my fabric is a little lighter there. It's definitely lighter coming down. It's lighter there. There, and then there's some complicated folds here. You don't need to get real hung up on any of that. This is where you might need to set your painting across the room. If you can pin it to a wall, or if it's still in your pad of paper, you might be able to stand it up, lean it on something. Set it far away. You want to be able to really take in the whole image all at once. So you're not looking at those tiny details. And ask yourself, does everything make sense? Does everything feel right? You know, it's okay if it isn't exactly like the image, but the painting should start to have a logic of its own. The light in it should make sense. Some of this stuff still feels like it needs attention, it needs help. I don't want to teach you bad habits about getting too perfect about things. So I'm gonna leave it like that, I think. Yeah, that works. Right now I'm mixing on the canvas itself. Was there something else I thought I saw? Yeah, there's a few little value changes I want to address in here. If you get to this stage and you feel like that's all you can do right now, then I think that's great. That feels like enough to me. I want to deal with a few more changes. That. add a little bit of my cool into that edge. I think that really helps differentiate those changing planes. And let's keep looking around, finding our areas we want to adjust. So I'm finally using my smaller brush. This is the right time for it at the end when I'm dealing with small details. You never, ever want to use a small brush to start. Okay, one last thing that I would do once this dries is adjust this. That's the only thing I feel like still needs a little attention. Otherwise, we're in good shape.